My guest today is a serious powerhouse in every sense of the word. I saw her speak at an event a few years ago, and her presence has had a lasting impact on my life. I am so honored to have Patrice Washington on the podcast today. And if you do not know her already, let me give her a proper intro. In 2020, Success Magazine, yes, the Success Magazine, named Patrice as one of 12 inspiring Black voices in personal development. As an award-winning author, transformational speaker, hope-restoring coach, and media personality, Patrice is committed to redefining the term wealth using its original meaning, which is well-being. I cannot wait to hear more about this. So this episode is so value-packed, and I want you to clear away distractions, listen up, because Patrice is not only going to help you redefine what wealth and success mean for your life, but she's also going to encourage us to chase purpose and not money. Before we get to today's episode, I have something really exciting to share with you. Our six-figure school business mentorship is officially open for enrollment, and I would love to work with you over the next 12 weeks, where we will equip you with a step-by-step plan to launch or grow your business or your big idea, along with mindset tools to help you get out of your own way, and the most incredible community of like-minded women to support you and hold you accountable. Even if you don't have a business yet, but you know you are meant for more, there is no such thing as joining Six-Figure School too early, because you have access to this program and community for the life of the program. So you can truly grow and learn at your own pace. I want you to ask yourself this question. What kind of impact could I be making 6 months from now? And I want you to think about that while you listen to just a few of our recent Six-Figure School graduates, what they have been able to accomplish since joining the Six-Figure School community.
One thing that I accomplished from being a part of Six-Figure School is that I launched my business, Impact Ignited.
I'm so excited. I launched a podcast. Started an Instagram account for my quotes.
I filed my LLC because of Six-Figure School.
I gained so much from that program. I was able to gain a community. I was able to build a foundation.
I finished my program, and then because of the community that's there, I gained so much support.
I had the tools to officially register my business and get my LLC. Then I went on to launch my first ever group coaching program.
I've launched a new business that I didn't even have the idea for before joining Six-Figure School.
Something that I accomplished was launching a program that will actually piggyback off an event I was already planning. And Six-Figure School helped me realize that that event could be a great stepping stone for something even bigger.
Just think about where you could be 6 months from now and the lives that you could be impacting. Enrollment is only open for a few days, so don't miss your opportunity to join us. I cannot wait to work with you and grow and learn inside this community. So head to joinsixfigureschool.com. You can get all the details there, answer your questions, and enroll and start this amazing journey of launching and scaling your big idea to make the impact that you know you're meant to make. Now let's get to today's episode. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in today. This interview has been a long time coming, and I'm just really so honored to have you here, Patrice. So thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Finally.
Yes. Well, it always works out in perfect timing, and we don't know yet why this was perfect timing. But I was first introduced to just your magic at the Bliss Project. This was how many years ago now?
2 years. It was actually 2 years ago, March.
I'm like, it feels like 12, maybe because
Yeah.
2020. And I was supporting our mutual friend, Lori, that year at her event. And I really say this not just because you're here, but truly from my heart. It was one of the most impactful presentations, just speakers that I'd ever witnessed. Just the power that you have on stage and how real you are about your story.
Ah,
So
I
I'm
have
really
to,
excited that you're
so
here.
Lindsay, I have to tell you a secret. That was actually for me one of the most rewarding talks
Hmm.
I gave for a couple different reasons. Being, as you know, I have a media background. And after being in media and kind of coached and mentored by people who meant well, but just didn't necessarily understand what I was called to do, I was told that I shouldn't wear my hair in braids on the stage or on camera. And I was told that I need to look a certain way. And, that I was just too animated and too this and too that. And something about Bliss Project, I just affirmed like I was going to go out there and be all of me. So I had braids to my butt and I wore my sparkly heels. If you remember, I had sparkly shoes on and I was just all the things. And it was just one of the most freeing experiences
Yeah.
that I think I had from the stage at that point in a while. And it
Mm.
felt so good. And that whole space was just, it was all magical, but it was also a turning point for me. I was already getting more and more comfortable in my own skin, but that particular event I will never forget was like, girl, do you all the time in every way. And ever since then, definitely. All through 2019, every talk I did, I always carried that energy and spirit. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Now you're bringing me back because I remember the outfit. You know, when you really remember someone and like the impact they had on you, I'm like, I'm weird. I remember what you were wearing. But because you referenced it, and I think you even shared a little bit of that story from stage. What an example too, that when we are our authentic selves, the permission it gives to others.
Oh my gosh. And the joy
Mm.
and the sheer fulfillment. And I mean, there's no, I haven't found anything negative about fully being myself.
I'm like, podcast over. That's it. There you go, people.
I have not found anything negative about fully being myself. I think if anything, it was taking on other people's ideas of what being vocal about my faith would do and what wearing my hair a certain way would do and all the things. But every time I've stepped into like, you know what? I'm just going to do it because doing anything else is hard because it's me, but it's a version of me. It's not
Yeah.
all of me. And every time I've tried to fit into someone else's box or fit into some mold that someone thought that I should be in or anything, it's always been okay. It's been good. I've had success, but I have not had the joy and the peace and the fulfillment that I experience now.
Okay, that right there is so key. I want you to expand a little bit more on that. Take us back to the version of you that didn't know this yet, that didn't know this lesson.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's go all the way back, you guys. So Lindsay knows this about me, but for the listeners, if you're not familiar with me, before who I am now, before what people know is redefining wealth, I was just known as America's money maven. And I got my start 19 years old in real estate, 21 became a real estate and mortgage broker, 25 seven-figure business, and then the recession hit and I lost everything. Went from the seven-figure business to scraping up change, went from a 6,000 square foot home in Southern California to living in a 600 square foot apartment in Metairie, Louisiana, and begging the light man, the power man not to cut the lights off or my daughter's milk would spoil. I have had these really great extremes, like really low lows and really high highs. And when I reintroduced myself, I would say to the marketplace, it was after having what I call a come to Jesus moment on the bathroom floor, where I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I was looking in the mirror like, God, okay, why me? Because I'm a good person. If I don't know anything else, I know I'm a decent human being. I treat people well. I operate in integrity. I've tried to do all the right things. I've tried to follow all the steps. So why am I in this position now with eviction notices on my door and applying for food stamps? After graduating from the University of Southern California and having a 7-figure business in this amazing life, like what the heck just happened here? And there was a scripture I was introduced to, Proverbs 17:16. What good is money in the hands of a fool if they have no desire to seek wisdom? And that scripture like hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was committed. Literally, it was just one of those divine things. Like I was committed. Oh my gosh, I need to go everywhere and tell people like this journey is not about just chasing money. We have to seek wisdom. And I was committed. I started a blog spot the next day. That turned into me writing for magazines and doing radio. I did 4 years on the Steve Harvey Morning Show, radio show, and then I did television and I did all the things. And while all of those things were wonderful and I was experiencing success, I was constantly, because I had come into this awareness of seeking wise counsel, I got into the habit of not wanting to make a move until I got advice from other people. And so now it started to become this never ending search for validation from outside sources. And it came, right? Because I only was supposed to go on the Steve Harvey show once and it turned into a weekly segment for 4 years. And then I was only supposed to do like a TV thing once. And then it turned into Dr. Oz and Steve Harvey and like all these other people. And so with that came producers saying, no, you should just talk about this, or like, no, we do really well if you just do this. And so even though I had been practicing all of the things I now talk about in my new book or on my podcast, I had been practicing those things, but because it didn't fit into the mold or the box that producers or, conference organizers or different things wanted, I just started to get into a smaller conversation, which was just money. I'm America's money maven. I need to talk about budgets. I need to talk about credit reports. I need to talk about debt elimination. I need to talk about saving. And I enjoyed it and I was good at it, but I always felt like there were pieces missing. And that was the trap because I was successful.
Yeah.
Like I was successful. Here I am. I went from scraping up change to rebuilding an entire career now with all of the things and having such notoriety. And it wasn't until one day I was on Dr. Oz and we were having a conversation about saving on groceries. And, Dr. Oz loves a good visual. So there's like this felt broccoli that we're moving from like one side of the stage to the next side. And I was like, girl, what are you doing? What are you even doing? Grateful for the opportunity, but also very aware that there's more to it than this. And when you were on the bathroom floor, you would have wanted someone to tell you the real, not just the recycled version of personal finance education, because that's not why you're here. Yeah. And so I walked away. I walked away from all of those things. Literally, my whole site came down. I walked away from the Steve Harvey show in 2018. I thanked them for 4 years, but it was no longer a fit. And I reintroduced myself again in the marketplace. And at this point, I don't even know if I will call myself America's money maven. I'm just Patrice Washington, and I'm on a mission to help my generation redefine wealth for themselves. That's it.
That is a version of the story that I haven't, and you probably have shared it on your podcast, which I love. And I feel like I just heard it in such a different light as you shared it just now, specifically the piece about wisdom and where we're seeking it. So how do you distinguish now between wise counsel? I love that you use that word. And then opinions, right?
That's so good because we know everyone has an opinion, right? So there's a couple things. First of all, I would say I tap more into the faith pillar. I'm very mindful about what advice I allow in. I'm coachable, so I'm willing to listen, but I'm not willing to make a move because someone has an opinion.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I used to just move. Someone would say, you should wear pearls because that looks like wisdom. And I go, oh, let me go buy some pearls, right? Are they like, your heels are too high. You need kitten heel shoes. And I'm like, oh, okay. Right. And now I've learned to reject any advice that's not in alignment with what I feel assigned to do.
Yeah.
And I believe that I feel like I've practiced so much being still, praying, meditating, journaling, and just getting in alignment with who I call my creator, that I pray for wisdom and discernment every day, that I can discern, okay, is this just someone who has an opinion? What are the real motives behind it? And even if someone is a mentor to me and they're brilliant and they've had wonderful success, it doesn't mean that my journey is supposed to look like theirs. I have to still take that advice and go sit with it, not run and implement and try to force myself, especially if it goes against my core values or if it goes against what I feel like I'm being called to do. It's like some people come along with advice and it is like, oh my gosh, how did you know what I was praying for? Right? Because they come and they drop something and it's like, oh my gosh, this is the exact next step. And wow, I can run with it. And then some people come with things and I'm like, oh, well, thank you so much for sharing. That is so sweet, right? Like that is so kind of you. And I'm much faster to just reject things that are just not in alignment. And I know that I'm coachable. So it's not that. It's not that I think I'm better than people or, oh, I got this or whatever. But I'm also like so in tune with what feels right in my spirit that when something feels wrong, I don't even dance with it anymore. I don't straddle the fence with it. I'm not like, well, let me see. No, my granny taught me my yes is my yes and my no is my no. And I have been owning that no so much more. And I'll tell folks, I appreciate your input, but that's not for me in this season.
Yeah. Okay, so this is really the perfect setup to talk a little bit about what you go into in your newest book and the way that you define wealth. Because what I hear, and you can tell me if this is accurate, but what I hear, and this is something I've really learned, I think, in this last season with 2020 being what it was too, is that having those daily practices, for me, it is a faith practice as well, is actually where I get the clarity that I think for a long time I was really seeking, but I was seeking it in the wrong places. And I love mentors. I love being a mentor, but I would never want someone to even listen to me above their higher power, right? So let's talk a little bit about the pillars. And I love that. I think it's one of the first is faith, or maybe it's the last. The health and the faith ones were to me like, yes, to hear that talked about in the context of wealth. So I'd love to just, have you really unpack this for us.
Yeah. So definitely, I would like to say too, to your point, yes, for me, my life is literally based on the 6 pillars. So when we go through these, I'm talking about this is how I literally set my day up or set my week up, set my month up. Yeah. And I always have an awareness of the pillars. And so the very first pillar is fit. It is about being mentally and physically fit. It's about becoming your best self. And so just a high level on fit, I believe that all of us have, if you're listening to this podcast, then I know you have a vision for your life, right? You see yourself somewhere 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10, 20 years from now. And I just believe that if we have a vision for our lives, it's our duty and responsibility to protect the vessel. We get one body, one temple. We got one shot at treating it with respect because we are depending on it to help us build wealth. And I don't think in this culture of hustle and grind and of, oh, I have to do all the things. And because now we can see people doing all the things just with a scroll through social media, we can become so overwhelmed with this idea of making it happen that we run ourselves into the ground. And what good is that? And so I talk a lot about being physically fit, but then also mentally fit. In my backstory, I did suffer a lot of, I would say, verbal and emotional abuse, and how those things played out and how I felt about myself and my looks and my confidence. And it wasn't until I went through a lot of therapy in my early 20s that I could actually look in the mirror without cringing. Because one of my big things was thinking that I was the ugly one, or, not always. I took great pride in my intelligence, but I didn't think people loved me without me being smart. So I also wore the banner of the responsible one, which is still something that I'm like unworking and unpacking to this day. And had I not gone to therapy, I look back on my life and go, there's no way I could be this person. There's no way that I could have my face on 5 books. There's no way I could be on national television this much. There's no way that I could stand on these stages if in my head I was still battling the limiting beliefs I had at that time, because I would have been too afraid to let people see me. I would have been too afraid to put on sparkly shoes, because then you would comment on my shoes and therefore see me, and then I'd have to prove to you that I was smart, and it'd be this never ending cycle. And so what I share with people now is, perhaps for you, building wealth and getting to your next level is not about, I need another degree, I need another certification, I need another course, I need another coach, I need to read 10 more books, I need 16 more podcasts, because that's what we make it about. So we turn into information gatherers and hoarders, and we're not action takers, because there's limiting beliefs that are actually running the show. And much of that is probably from childhood trauma. So how can you get all the way to the wealth stuff, like get to the money stuff, if these are the types of conversations or, just ways of being that are holding you back? So that's why we start with Fit Pillar.
I especially remember, I think it was, you did an awesome podcast series to kick off this year, which really went through the pillars. So we'll link your podcast and everything for people so they can find it. I think that's a great place to start, as well as the book. But I had to laugh because Lori, who you know as well, moved here and she's like my fit friend. So all of a sudden she has me doing things. I'm running now. And you had said, you gave this example. I'd love if you would talk about what had to shift in your mind. You gave this great example too about like living into this story, I'm not a runner. And I think that's a beautiful blend of like the mental and physical wellness, right? These beliefs that really do get in our way. I'd love if you would share a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh, girl. I was telling this story, Lindsay, forever, that like, oh, I don't run. And I used to have this one thing that I used to say from the stage all the time. That words are powerful, and what we verbalize, we magnify, and what we verbalize, we magnetize, right? So every time we say these things, we make it bigger in our own lives, or we bring more of that type of energy. And, sometimes you get real good at being the guru. I don't consider myself to be a guru, but you say things so much that you're just saying it. And sometimes we are not in the habit of always recognizing that everything that we're saying, we're also responsible for in our own lives, And I said it, and then it dawned on me. I go, wait a minute, what you verbalize, you magnify. Why do you keep saying you're not a runner? And I go, my knees aren't bad. Like, I've never had any leg injuries, right? I don't, quote unquote, have bad knees or bad ankles. And that story had been running the show since I was dodging like physical training in junior high and high school sports. Like, I was the girl, they'd say run around the school 6 times, and I would run around 2 and then like hang out somewhere and then come out when everyone was on their 6th lap. I'm like, what kind of person?
Sounds smart to me.
That was my volleyball and basketball conditioning. That I was that person, and all the coaches knew that I was like full of it. And it was this thing. And when I finally said, there was a woman in one of my groups, I talk about this in the book. There's a woman who said, oh, for my Fit Pillar thing, I'm going to do 10,000 steps. And immediately this other woman comments below her on Facebook, and she's like, well, I can't do 10,000 steps. I can only do this. And I'm like, well, what does her 10,000 steps have to do with you? Like, how did you drop straight into comparison? Yeah. And in the Fifth Pillar, I talk about the power of no comparison, is that I've learned that even when I have a fit buddy, we're not competing. We're just holding each other accountable to make this a part of our daily life. But there's no competition, because I could do 20, burpees at, in 30 seconds that you need to now try to do 22. We're not in competition. If you can do 6, you did it, And once I got out of that mindset, Lindsay, it was like the next day I got some running shoes and I became a runner. It was literally the shift in mindset when I was like, what are you talking about? Why do you keep saying that? That's a lie. Just run. Yeah. And I started out doing, I think, an 18-minute mile. And then I just kept at it. Every other morning, I would just go for a run. When I lived in California, I would just go for a run. And I got it down to like a 11-minute mile or something like that. And it was like, girl, you were more than capable. but it was a story. And I think that's the same for many of us. We have these one-liners. It only takes a few words. I don't run. And we will run our whole lives. We will literally navigate our lives through that lens. And it's not even true.
Oh, I mean, that hit me so hard when you shared that. I started to look actively, like in my life now, where am I supporting something that just doesn't fit? It just doesn't fit anymore. Is there anything for you that's like a current find that you notice? Maybe you've been saying, I don't, or anything that now retelling this story, you realize is like your next shift?
Oh, yeah, girl. I'm always self-reflecting. So there's always
Same.
something.
I have that feeling about you too.
Like, yeah, my current one is the responsible one. It is wearing the badge or the banner of I am the responsible one, because what it's made me do, what I've allowed it to do, is take on the responsibility of saving other people. And I was really good at setting boundaries in my professional life. I'm pretty decent with it. I've grown like tremendously.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I still had weak boundaries with very specific family members. And so anytime they were going through something, not even financially, it didn't have to be financially, but that's included, I would want to be the savior. I want to be the savior and fix it just for the sake of getting it done and moving on. Because I'm like, okay, let me just go fix so you can stop talking to me about this. And then so I can go on to something else.
Next.
Right. And I'm like, wait a minute. The responsible one energy, now that I just turned 40 a couple weeks ago, I'm like, I don't want to carry that for another 40 years. I feel like I was groomed to be the responsible one. I was always the person, even as a little kid. Remember, my validation came from achievement, and it came from proving that I was smart. And so to show that I was smart, I would fix problems. Even when I was 9 years old, I was fixing the problems of the older people in my family. And that just became the banner that I carried all these years. And now, as a wife and a mother and someone who pours into so many other people, I'm like, I don't want to carry that anymore. Yeah. And so whatever one-liner, which is like, let me just fix it. Like I'm undoing that to like, let me see how they do on their own. Like, you fix it yourself, because you're grown.
Yeah.
And you're not my kid. So I don't have to fix. And the truth is, even when my daughter fixed to the extent that I've fixed for other people, because I've taught her to be much more independent than I actually expect from these other people who are grown.
Wow.
And that was a big aha.
Because she's what, 13 now?
13, definitely headed into like 29-ish.
Not quite 30, but 13 going on 29.
Not quite 30, but definitely in her late 20s mentally. She's a smart girl. And I encourage her to be her own advocate. So if I would encourage a 13-year-old to be her own advocate with an 8th grade science teacher, what in the world am I doing for this 50-year-old? No, gotta stop.
So I just went down a tangent on even just the fit pillar, which all of them are so good. But that right there was gold, and such a reminder too, that like with your example with the responsibility, sometimes these deeply rooted patterns and stories just put on like a new outfit, and then they come back and you're like, no, that's not the same one, but it really is. Just wearing a top hat.
Absolutely is. I'll tell you another thing I'm leaving behind. It's kind of fit pillar related. Numbers. I like my attachment to unnecessary numbers. I did a episode called 3 Things I'm Leaving Behind in My 30s. Girl, for me, it was the number on the scale. It was the number on the scale. No matter how good I thought I looked or I felt, I would still get on a scale and go, oh my gosh, girl, what are you doing? You need to lose 8 pounds or something. And these last several months, I would say maybe the last 4 or 5 months, the more I like really tried to unpack that, I'm like, but you look good. Like, what are you mad about? Right? Like, I felt good until I saw the scale, and I'm at the point of like, no, just throw away the scale, throw away the whole scale, because I can manage, it's like the fit pillar is not about a number on the scale. It never was for me. It wasn't about a dress size. It wasn't about a number on the scale. It's about, do I have the energy to pursue the purpose I feel called to? Like, do I have the stamina to serve the way I know I'm called to serve? Do I have, the energy, the stamina, the mental clarity to do the things that I'm being called to do? That was the purpose of the fit pillar. And somewhere along the way, as I started to age, right? And then things were like, not necessarily, I'm like, girl, you're getting a little thick back there. Like, what's happening? Right. I started to like make that a thing. But the truth is, there is no thing. Once I realized how important fit pillar was, I've had times in my life when my iron levels were so low and my hemoglobin levels were at the point where I would need a blood transfusion if I wasn't careful. Like, I had gone through all the stages of exhausting myself. And now here I am, like, actually in better shape and better health, really heading into 40 than I had been in my late 20s. But now I'm questioning because the number on the scale doesn't look like what I want it to look like. Based on what? Nothing, right. And so that's one of those things too, that I'm not sure that it was what I was saying, but it was how I was allowing myself to feel every time I got on. Being in beat up mode. What are you beating yourself up about? You eat well, you work out, you take care of yourself, you go to the chiropractor, you get colonics, you drink water.
I mean, what else is there?
Like, what else do you want to do? And my daughter told me too, she's like, Mom, we can't be the same size. That's weird. Like,
Reagan.
She's like, yeah, Reagan is so funny.
Bless her
She's
heart.
like, Mom, like, you're like you look good. Like, you look like a good, like, looking mom. Like, I'm like, oh, wow, I've graduated to being a good looking mom. Great. But I got what she was saying, just that, she looks like I did at 17, but I'm not 17. Like, I'm 40. So you're in good health and you feel good and you like what you look like in your clothes and you can still show up confidently. Why do you care? Why do you care about what that says? Why are you making that a thing? And so I threw out the scale about 6 weeks ago and I haven't been happier.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love how you've crafted the pillars, because again, as we're in this conversation, there's so many parallels to our wealth life if we think about it just as money, the way it's typically perceived. So run me through, I mean, as much as you want to share about the other pillars, there's 6 in total, and why they are so important. It's just the most brilliant and simple way I've ever seen wealth defined, or redefined, as you like to say. So yeah, I'd love if you'd go into what the other pillars are and just how they do impact what we think of as wealth.
Yeah. So the second pillar is people. People is about creating relationships that matter. And I just always say, listen, there's always someone watching you who has the power to bless you. But who are they watching you be? And we are so consumed as a society with like, oh, I need more followers. I need, more. And it's like, you want 1 million followers, but you don't engage with the 100 you have. Well, why? Why do you need more people to ignore? Like, for what? Right? We can build wealth without needing to serve 1 million people. This is why I tell my clients, when you really break down your numbers, how many people do you really need to serve to hit that number? It's not 10,000 a year. It's probably not 1,000 a year. If you could serve 100 people well, you probably more than exceeded your own expectations. But we get so caught up in just wanting to, it's kind of like when you go to a networking event and people are just throwing cards out at you, which is why I don't go to those. But like, people are throwing cards out, but they don't want to stop and have meaningful conversation and also really be someone who is not just saying, here's what I need, but also saying, what can I give? How can I serve? How can I support? So when I talk about creating relationships that matter, all of the opportunities that I've had, Lindsay, have come through relationship. They've never come from me pitching. I think 95% of how I've built my business has been strictly through relationships and treating people well and operating in integrity. So that is such a huge one for building wealth, because we are the sum total of like the people we hang out with. And most of the great tips I've had on investing in anything or learning about new money, things, they've come from relationship. They haven't come from trying to force anything anywhere else. So that's being the professional side of people. And then I'll say really quickly, the personal side of people. My daughter in particular, I had a lot of mom guilt when I first started in the business. I was traveling and speaking and doing all the things, and I always felt guilty that I was leaving her. And she was young, and I would come back home, and it would feel like, for her, I know this, she would want to tell me all these stories that I missed, and I would be glued to my phone, and I'd be scrolling and scroll. And one day I was just she was telling me a story. And I think I was actually laughing at something on the screen because I wasn't really listening to her. I was pretending to listen, and I was shaking my head. And she's like, "Mom, why are you laughing? This is not a good story." She was like 6. And I was like, "Oh, okay, you got to do something. Like, you have to be better." And my mom guilt started to melt away, Lindsay, when I realized that when I was in her presence, it was my duty to be present. Not just because I'm physically present, do I assume that's enough. It's not enough. And I think a lot of us think that our families don't support us or don't want to support us. And the truth is, we're not really being present with them when we have the opportunity to be present. And therefore, they can develop bitterness, towards this thing that we give all of our attention to. And again, even though it may be purposeful, like, is the way we're treating it really beneficial to our families? I don't want to be a public success and a private failure. So the reason that now at 13, Reagan and I have the tight relationship that we have is because for the last 7 years in particular, I've made it a habit of being present when I'm in her presence. When I'm in her presence, I don't care about anything going on social media. Not important. I care about her TikTok videos because that's usually what she's showing me. So I'm watching all of that, but I'm not trying to engage with clients or do this or that. When I'm in an interview, I'm fully present here with you. When I'm with a client, I'm fully present with my client. And all of those things, I think, have just helped me show up as a better version of myself personally and professionally, which in turn has led to more opportunities to build wealth. So that's the people. That's the people pillar.
Again, each of these could be, and I know on your show you've done like a whole podcast. So for those of you that are like me, just wanting this episode to go on and on, you'll have to go listen to the individual episodes on Patrice's podcast. But okay, so we have fit, people. And then what's
we have
next
space. So we have space. That's about setting up your life to support you. In the space pillar, we talk a lot about clutter and how clutter is the physical manifestation of chaos in our mind. And I really believe that, I'm not a minimalist, but I try to simplify things as much as possible and not just have a lot of stuff just to have it. Because I find that, as a writer, when I'm writing, if my desk is junky, Lindsay, it's not going to happen. Like, I could sit there with the best of intentions and I just feel that block, that my creativity gets trapped. I think in the clutter, my ability to sometimes we know the answers, we just can't see it. Like, the answers are right in front of us, but we have so many things physically in our midst that are blocking us. And this goes for you, even if you have it all neatly tucked away. It could be, because don't think that clutter is like, oh, hoarders. You mean an episode of Hoarders? Like, no. Clutter can be, for some of my clients, it's been the letters of ex-boyfriends that have gone with them from house to house to house all over the country. And every time they do see it, it brings up why you dumped him and how he cheated and all the things. And it's like, how is that great for your energy? How is that great for your spirit? We have, many of us, an unhealthy attachment to just things from our past that we keep lugging along from season to season to season. And we don't realize how that may be blocking maybe an opportunity for a new relationship, or maybe an opportunity for the next iteration of your business or whatever. So we're very big on clearing the clutter and understanding time is money, but most of us waste a lot of time that could go towards money-making activities, usually looking for things we already own but can never find. And that's a big one. And I know you may be listening. How many folks have, Lindsay, you're included. How many times have you repurchased something that you know you had, but you can't find it? And you're like, you know what? I'll just get another one. And then you stumble upon it. It's like when you go to the grocery store without a list and you're like, oh man, I had ketchup, right? I had this stuff. But then the same people say, well, I don't have money to invest in the program, or I don't have money to invest in this. But if you look around your house, you've probably spent that very money buying things you already had or could have repurposed.
So
And it's
true.
a waste. Yeah. So that's the space pillar. And then we have the faith pillar. The faith pillar is about believing in something greater. And I intentionally did not make the faith pillar first because I grew up in church, like 25/8, if that's the thing, like all day, every day, all around. And I just felt like, from my experience, I felt like people who do have some type of faith practice usually use it as a crutch to not do the work. So they'll be like, oh, I'll pray about it, but then do nothing to like help move the process along. So I intentionally didn't put faith first. I put it forth because I wanted my community of purpose chasers to start getting in action about what can you be doing to help move this thing forward, to move your life forward. But in believing in something greater, it comes down to this for me, understanding that nothing in life is happening to us, it's happening for us. And no matter what faith you may subscribe to is not the point. Like, I really don't care what you say you believe in. I just believe that if you don't believe in anything, you're going to fall for everything, because life is coming, whether you like it or not. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And I think that many of us quit right before our breakthrough because we don't have anything sustaining us or giving us hope. And for me, my faith is a part of my resilience. It's why I can get knocked down 10 times and get up 11. It's not because things are perfect. Pursuing purpose doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect, but you have to have some practice that you lean into. And I think a lot of people wait until they're in the middle of the storm to figure out what they want to believe. And I think that it's backwards. You need to know what you believe so that when the storm comes, because again, it's not if, it's when, you already have your battle plan for like, okay, here's how we're going to do this thing. Even if it doesn't, everything that you always do doesn't always work, you should have some things that you can lean into that give you a sense of peace. And to me, that's what the faith pillar is about.
Oh, I love that. I feel like that's the one right now in this season is the one I'm actively working on the most. Like, just as it's always been a part of my life, but like rediscovering what that means for me and going like on a deeper level. So I love that you talked about that. Okay. And then was that 5? Are we on 6 now?
That was 4.
4.
So
okay.
5 is work. It's about living your life's purpose. And the big message here for me is that I think that we've gotten it twisted. Whoever came up with follow your passion and the money will come, I think that they lied. God bless them, but I think that they lied. I think it has people spiraling in these cycles of confusion because they feel very passionate about something. But the truth is, just because you're passionate doesn't mean you're proficient. Just because you're passionate about something doesn't necessarily mean it's your gift or what you're called to do. It might be a hobby. It might be something that you do for fun because it energizes you. It excites you. It pumps you up. You can do it all day without ever going to the bathroom or getting any food, right? Like, you need no liquid exchange because you are passionate, and that is awesome. But purpose means that you're in service to others. And if you're only if you're the only person pumped up about what you're doing, there could be a chance that it's a hobby and like you can like it. And I'll give you the perfect example, Lindsay. I love to sing in the shower. I am passionate. Okay. I will belt out a Whitney tune, drop of a dime. If I hear it come on, I'm good for a Whitney Houston tune. I even sing a little Billie Eilish. My daughter has me hip to some more things, like a little Adele. I will belt it out, but no one listening to this will ever want to pay me for my singing voice. Passionate all day, but not my gifting. Not what I was actually called to do just because I enjoy it. And my purpose was connected to my ability to communicate. And it's the very thing that I used to get in trouble for in school, a little over communication, right? Communicating while the teacher was trying to communicate something.
Like, you don't know where I'm going later in life, okay?
Right. Like, I had one teacher, my first grade teacher, Miss Boynton, is the only person, I even give her a shout out in my book. She's the only person who recognized the gift, and she would allow me to help other students and teach them and stuff so she could channel me talking. I was in first grade. I have no idea what I was teaching. I don't know if I was like, okay, 1 + 1 is 2. I don't know what I was teaching, but I remember her allowing that, but then getting to second grade, and Miss Parker was like, ma'am, you are not the teacher. You will sit down and you will be quiet. And I feel like after that, people kind of squashed it. They didn't see it as a gift. And I just say that to say that for many of us, the reason we may be pursuing certain things and not the things that really come to us easily is because someone dismissed it early on. And now back to that comparison mode, we're looking around and we're like, well, so-and-so, they jump rope really well. This is me as a little kid. Well, look at her jumping rope, or look at her twirling a baton. Look at him dribbling a basketball. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And so I could never see that speaking was a gift. And I didn't until I was much older. And so that's what we talk about. And I talk about that, why that's important as it connects to your finances, is because when you're using your gifts and operating in purpose, it really helps you to establish your priorities. The truth is, I believe a lot of financial mismanagement comes from a lack of fulfillment. So when you're unfulfilled in what you're doing day in and day out, you try to fill the void by buying stuff or buying people. And that's it. So that's why work and the thing that we do with most of our hours throughout the day has to be in alignment with your purpose. And then last is money. Finally, America's former money maven, formerly known as America's money maven. Finally, what I would talk about on all those shows and in, all the media and things I used to do is all summed up in the 6th pillar, which is money. And the truth to me is the basics of personal finance are so easy. That's not what keeps people from doing them. What keeps us from doing the minimum, save to 10% of what you bring in. Yes, you should use a budget. Don't lend money you can't afford to give. Don't invest in things that you don't understand. Like all of these very basic principles, we would be able to follow if our lives and our minds weren't so cluttered with the first 5 pillars.
Yeah.
But those are the places we're stuck, and we think it's the money. It's never been the money. It's been the other stuff.
It's the most beautiful, if we call it a financial book, which it's so much more. It's just the most holistic approach, like true wisdom. You always talk about the difference between wisdom and knowledge. It's like the wisdom part.
Yeah.
Not just more tips to help you do more of the same.
It's a big surprise. I think it's a big surprise, Lindsay. The people who open the book, they're like, wait, there's not a whole chapter on budgets? No. Because if I can shift your behavior, you'll be able to identify and use whatever budget works for you. It doesn't like the type of budget doesn't matter. It's why are you not doing the things you already know to do? That's what we have to find. Yeah. And that's what going through those exercises starts to peel, layers back, and you start to get more clarity on, oh, okay. Now, with all the foolishness out the way, I can focus.
Yeah. So we keep mentioning the book. I don't know if I said the title yet. The book is Redefine Wealth for Yourself. Of course, we'll link it. We'll make sure you guys know where to get it. What would you say is what for you makes this book a success when you see what in the world?
When I see more women in particular pursuing wealth without this relentless sense of stress and struggle and strife, when I see more women stepping into power from a place of ease and grace, and they are literally just attracting opportunities and success. Like they just wake up and they're like, oh my gosh, can you believe I just got this surprise check in the mail? Or, oh my gosh, I just got this email. And they start to see, oh, I don't have to force and manipulate anything. Yeah. I can surrender and move through life with this sense of purpose, but just being committed to chasing the purpose and allowing the money to come.
Yeah. I just want to thank you for that moment on the bathroom floor where you chose a different path and for taking us all along for the ride and sharing what you've learned. It's really transformed my life. It's transforming so many lives that you will never get to meet or see. And you are just one of the most beautiful souls I've ever had the opportunity to connect with.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It wasn't an easy time at all, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm so grateful for that bathroom floor moment. I'm grateful because I had passion for financial education and helping people, but the compassion that that bathroom floor moment gave me, I wouldn't trade for the world. And it's the thing that reminds me every day that even if I don't feel like it or I'm not up to it, that I have a responsibility, and like you said, for people who I may never meet in person, I want people to hear my story and know that it's possible for them. And it's not about perfection, and it's not about being an expert in anything in particular. It's literally about giving yourself permission to receive these lessons and implement them, and know that if it happened for me, I totally believe that the transformation can happen for anyone else.
I'm like, retweet that. Amen. We'll just like put that on the. So I'd love if you would share not just where people can find the book, but if there's a specific place that would support you most for people to go and buy it from. Share where we can get the book, of course, and then where we can find you too.
Yeah, so you can go to the website Redefine Wealth for Yourself, and we have links to retailers there. So Redefine Wealth for Yourself. And then, of course, my favorite place to play on social media right now is Instagram. So I would say come over to Seek Wisdom PCW and just let me know that Lindsay sent you so I can thank you and thank her. Yeah, and that's it. And of course, share this episode with anyone that you feel like would benefit from it, who it will bless.
Along those lines, what I would love to do. So if you take a screenshot, show us. I love to see like where people are when they're listening. So show us if you're on a walk, or maybe not if you're driving. Be safe. But if you screenshot, tag Patrice, tag Powerhouse Women, and we're gonna pick 3 people and send them a copy of the book. It's
That's
so good.
awesome.
You guys have to get it into your hands. So screenshot this and share it, and we're gonna gift a couple of you a copy. But buy your own anyway, and then you can gift the second one to like your favorite woman and just tell her this is because you're a powerhouse. So Patrice, this was even more fun than I knew it would be. And I'm just so grateful that you are on the mission that you're on. And it really is. It's making an impact on all of us. So one final question. This is a fave that I love to hear, especially women who are operating and doing beautiful, big things in the world, is something for you that is a moment of late. It can be big or small, where you are now in this moment just realizing, you know what, I was a total powerhouse in that moment, and how I dealt with that, how I learned from that. We just call it your powerhouse moment, but it's a chance for you to pause right now and just really acknowledge yourself for being a powerhouse in your life. So what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, I want to say this, but I'm torn between, was it a powerhouse moment or was I being the responsible one? I'm like, was it a powerhouse moment or was I being the responsible one? Lindsay, why'd you do me like this? Okay.
I'm telling you, I ask it because I need this reminder to actually ask myself this question regularly.
Okay. This is one. It was the moment that I came out of a photo shoot that I had about 3 weeks ago, and my whole team and family members were there. I did the photo shoot with a photographer. I went into the restroom to change, and then I came out and all these people were there to surprise me. And my team had applied for International Redefining Wealth Day.
What?
Yes. It applied for International Redefining Wealth Day, and it was approved. And so my birthday, March 15th, from 2021 on, will be known as International Redefining Wealth Day. And I'm not even certain that I've really let that set in. Like, is that really like that's a thing? But to create something that people really believe in and get behind. And I have people sending me messages like, how are we going to celebrate next year? I'm like, whoa, it's been 2 weeks. But the fact that it means so much to so many people and that my team would figure out and, you know, surprise me and go out of their way. What a freaking powerhouse woman like move that is, right? I have a day, Lindsay. I'm official.
See, that is why this question just it does. And like you said, it'll probably take a while for you to process it, but I wouldn't have known that if I wouldn't have asked. So thank you for sharing so that we can have it on our calendars for March 15th, 2022.
March 15th. I mean, in the middle of International Women's History Month, I now have a day. Like, how cool is that? And thank you, because one of my things too is I need to learn to celebrate.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to connect again soon.
Absolutely.